I'm going to be taking maybe, if you're watching this after live, then I'll be taking 2 minutes trying to get my group situated, see if anyone goes on. So if you'd like to skip ahead for 2 minutes, that would be awesome. Something like that, I guess. So I'll be sharing now to my groups. I usually share it once it goes live. I don't schedule and share. I probably should start doing that, but one thing at a time, I guess, when I figure stuff out. Um, I share it to my messenger, and I gotta share it to my other group. Then I'm gonna share it to my page, my actual page. I think that's long enough. I guess I can go ahead and get started. All right, let's go ahead. All right, so first and foremost, of course, everyone likes different openings, and I always play e4, and I have like my own opening report of what I play. And early on, when you don't have that, you should probably go by more opening principles until you learn them. I can maybe talk a little bit about what they are as I'm doing them. So e4, it kind of this right here develops a piece, which is important to develop your pieces in the opening. So usually knights before bishops, usually. And this is why I like this bot is because it's extra aggressive. So it's basically attacking immediately with it's not a very sound opening, but it's attacking immediately at the e4. So let's go over each move by move now because I don't have an opening report for e5 and f5. I just don't. So right now I'll be completely out of whatever I've learned. And now I can go to opening principles, which is basically I'm glad I can do this. So first and foremost, when you see something that you're not familiar with, you have to look at king safety. And I think my king is pretty safe. And my opponent's king safety, well, he opened this up right here. The ability for a check eventually, not immediately because my knight's in the way, by opening up this diagonal. That's why it's usually bad to move your f pawn. In this case, for black, it was f7 to f5 because it allows me to, let's say, capture maybe and possibly bring my queen over from d1 to h5. So that's something to keep in mind. So now basically I get to decide. He's attacking. I get to decide, am I going to counterattack? Am I going to defend? So let's say a defensive move would be knight to c3. And if he takes, I can capture. That's the more of a defensive move, and I'm developing. D3 is defensive, but I'm not developing anything. Now, bishop to d3 is a little defensive and developing at the same time, but it also is blocking this pawn. So let's say I move here and she doesn't take. Let's say she just moves down or just leaves a pawn there. Then what is my bishop doing? So my bishop, if the only purpose is just to recapture and there is no capture, then I just basically left my piece in a weird square because it's not doing anything. It'll be blocked off by the pawn, and this diagonal already has, so I just basically made a move on a diagonal that might make a move later on. So I just kind of wasted a move. So for that reason, I don't like the bishop move. This move doesn't really develop anything or do much. This is the developing moves. So these are like defensive ones. Now for aggressive moves or attacking moves, I have the capture here and I have a capture here. And because of the queen availability is why I would prefer this capture. Even though he can maybe, let's say, bring this down one and attack my knight, I can bring my knight back. I can call it check. I have other options. So I like both. So I'm going to go ahead and attack. All right. As I said, was an available move, and he blocked it off with the knight, which is perfectly normal. And he developed a piece. So that was a very good developing move for him. And I can take the pawn here, but I'm not entirely sure if that's a good idea. Because if I take the pawn, she can easily attack my knight and then be hitting my pawn at the same time. Then with my knight back, and then she'll capture the pawn and be in lead in development because she'll have two pieces to these two pieces will be developed to my one piece. So I'm gonna just leave my knight here and just develop a piece for that reason. Okay. And obviously I can't take it yet because it's being defended once and only attacked once. So I can't really do that. Now I'm considering moving to d4, but my concern is will my knight go after this? Maybe I'll probably pull it back. So I'm gonna go ahead. I guess I can go ahead and do that. But first is foremost is looking at king safety, which they both seem pretty safe, but pretty soon it looks like it's opening up. So a check is possible with the queen, but I don't see much of a follow-up. So I'm not too worried about it. I might block with the bishop if that happens to me. And let's see here. They have not really much set up either. I can move my bishop over to attack this diagonal as well. But if he moves up, it's defended twice, and this pawn will be defending this pawn, so it might lead to some issues. I'm also considering d3. Another move I'm considering. If he captures, that'd be great. But if not, then what am I doing? Because I'm blocking my bishop again. So I do like the idea of this bishop, but he can block it. I have to move back. This is protected, and then it's just a little cramping. So I guess I can also attack it again, but it'll block it. So I can also play d4. Yeah, I think I'll play d4. I'll just go ahead and continue on with the having more control over the center, which is basically one of the chess principles anyways. So there's a lot of little weird stuff. Nothing is exactly that I can see super great. So I'm going to go ahead and have more control over the center a little bit and do that. Attacking the knight, which is attacking the pawn. So indirectly it's defending the pawn again. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. It's pinning to the king. So for king safety, it's obviously a slightly more in danger, but not really. It's still safe for the most part. I can defend it. The purpose of defending it would be if he takes, I take back with the bishop. Hello. The reason why I would defend would be if I don't defend it and he takes it and I take back, I'll be doubling up my pawns. That's normally not a good idea. Here it might be okay because I'm thinking about moving my bishop here, and if I say he blocks it and I move back, if he were to take and I take back, I might be able to move my bishop here to stop him from castling. So in this case, I don't mind being doubled up in pawns. For the most part, that's something that is usually bad. double pawns are usually bad because they can't really. For example, if my pawn was here and captured, and this was by itself, no pawn can defend this one. Like earlier, I was saying how this can defend this pawn here. When you double pawns or when you lose a pawn, it usually loses a defender for this one as well. So it's usually not a good thing, but it's not super bad. So I'm gonna go ahead and just develop. Okay, and that's perfectly fine. I'm basically blocking off this for now. And this move doesn't do much. I don't really see like the point of it. If it looks like a wasted move, he had time. He can develop, prepare to develop, maybe block to try to get a castle in somehow. But what she did was basically by not looking at anything. I figured this is the best move to block everything off, and I just assumed that's what she would do. Since it didn't happen, I do have this check, and I don't have much of a follow-up after the check. However, this check has to be dealt with, which means the king would have to move somewhere, and now it can't castle. So this f pawn is moved, which allows my queen to eventually at some point come in when this knight's not here and start trying to do some damage with my pieces and my queen. That's something that I would be considering to do in the future. And because my bishop, if I can call a check and make him move, he can't castle. So that should be very helpful to me. So this move right here was basically a wasted move because of that. So I'm going to go ahead and call a check. And now I can move back. And I'm going to go back here because, like I said, if I go here, he has obviously just moved to, disrupt my bishop, and then I have to move back anyways. So there's no point in moving here, have his move his pawn up, and then for me to move back again. I can just move all the way back here, and then if he moves his pawn up, I can make a different move. And that's basically not losing a tempo, basically. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way down so I don't lose a tempo. Yeah, see? That was a good move before. Now it's kind of, it would have been much better if for her if she did it sooner. The king wouldn't be in this position. So now that I have that situated, I can castle maybe. So let's look at king safety first. My king is still for the most part safe. Her king isn't very safe. Let's look at the pawns really quick. My pawns are pretty much stable and not under attack. And her pawns are a little off, but not entirely bad. Except for this one really messed her up for the most part. So these are pretty okay. They're a little spaced out too, though. So I might be able to attack them in the future, but they're not priority right now. Right now, priority will be developing my pieces and getting ready to attack the king. That's my priority. Materials pretty even. Piece activity. My piece is a little more active, and when I castle, my rook will be more active. So I'm thinking about castling and pushing this pawn. I'm not sure if I want to push it up one to trade to open my rook up, or if I just want to bounce it up there and just push it to be more to actually have my pawn help attack the king. I'm not entirely sure yet. It depends on her moves. So I'm gonna go ahead and just castle. I don't really see much other moves. I mean, I can maybe move my bishop here, but I'm gonna attack it, and then I can trade maybe. If I did that, maybe trade, but then I don't have a follow-up, and my knight would have to move. So I don't really like the look of that yet. So maybe in the future. So I'm gonna castle to develop my rook, and maybe attack with my pawn. So, excuse me. Because of this move here, I'm not thinking about f4. I'm probably going to do f3. Because if I try to bring my pawn all the way up, and then move more to bring it closer, she can just take out the bishop for free because it's defended by the pawn. So I can't take it with the rook. And for that reason, I think it's better to do f3 to trade off one of these pawns, basically come in and trade it off. So my rook is able to attack the knight. The reason why I want the rook to hit the knight is because my bishop could come in and pin the knight. And I have two attackers on it. And it would be forced to defend. And then I can maybe, in the future, bring my rook up, bring my queen over. Since I already traded one of the pawns, it might be possible to take the other pawn with my knight and pretty much pile up on his piece. So that's pretty much what I'm looking to do, is to pile up on the piece. So for that reason, I like f3. I could do it in different order. I can always start with bishop to g5 as well, but I don't like the idea of him moving the pawn up one, me moving back, bring the pawn up one. So I rather develop my bishop after my rook is attacking the knight to prevent that from happening. So order is very important. I'm going to go ahead with this. Okay, takes that. I can capture back. That was the idea before. Now I opened up this diagonal for my bishop. So now I have a whole other diagonal. I can take this, however, and keep my original plan, but my pawn here needed to be in e4 for this attack that I wanted. With it being here, it's not gonna have the same effect. So I'm thinking about just simply going over here, but I want to double check to see if that's okay or not. So let's see here. Yeah, bishop to a3. Let's say I do this. Maybe a check. These two are blocked off by the knight. The king will only have the squares the king has available will be these three. And I don't really have much of a follow-up on any of them. So there's no need to do a check right now. I actually maybe can take this. Move this up a little bit maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I don't feel very comfortable moving my pawn up. I'm thinking about it as well. But I'm not too comfortable with that idea. The reason I like this bot right here is because it's not very strong, but it's very aggressive. So it's going to make lots of mistakes while attacking and being aggressive. And it's a good opportunity to learn how to take advantage of your opponent's mistakes. That's why I like this bot specifically. So it's very good for early on doing that. So it has helped me a bit with that. So king safety, the king doesn't seem very safe, but also I don't have many attacks as well after this move here. I actually may have to throw my pawns up in order to get it. So she would have to trade this way, and then I can, maybe open something up. Or I can just move up here and somehow get my queen involved after getting rid of the knight. So I'm going to take this first, pawn up eventually. So take this first, attack the knight, bring the pawn up, and then after taking the knight, I should be able to bring my queen in somehow with my rook. That's pretty much my idea now after it moved down. So it would have been a lot easier for me if he just took, which is what I thought, but what happened? So she found a move that was a little bit more complicated for what I wanted. Okay, so king safety is pretty much generally the same. You look at every move because so you don't miss something. Pawn structures, a little off. I had this check before. This would have been beautiful now, but I don't have it now. So I can't screw the king and make a move out the way so I can take his rook. But I can go this way to trade and then move pawn up and get my queen involved to the attack somehow. Well, not to the square directly because of the bishop, but this diagonal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Get rid of one of his defenders. The threat to that move is right here. And my bishop can't move to these squares and basically be trapped. So I kind of have to answer this first before I do anything else. You see my attention came over here immediately. Once I had all these hands over here, but once he made a move on the opposite side of the board, I had to look at what was going on here before I continued. When you make plans, you can't just mindlessly do your plan. You have to always pay attention to your opponent's moves. Otherwise, you can basically fall for. I would have fell for a trap piece if I didn't do that, and that can happen to anybody. So, the only way to get room for the bishop is by moving this pawn, and I have to decide: do I want to move it up 1 or 2 squares? And what is the difference? If I'm up 2 squares, he can capture, and then I can decide if I'm going to capture for my rook or my bishop. And move it up 1, then I just go back. So then basically I decide, do I want to go back or is this better? And pretty much if she captures, and let's pretend I take up my rook, I can't move these 2 squares because this pawn has it covered and this pawn has it covered. So the rook here doesn't really make too much sense to me for that reason. And if you were to take and aim my bishop here, I would be having this diagonal instead of this one. Now, this diagonal is closed off by the pawn, so I don't have it anyways. So it's not like moving here would be that good for me. It will make more sense for me to move pawn up here so I can have a diagonal that I can use. I would have a used diagonal that's not as great as a closed diagonal that I can't really push. Now, yeah, that looks. I think this is better for that reason. I'd rather have an open diagonal that I can use than one that I can't. So, all right. So it moved up 1. That's perfectly fine. My bishop is safe now. I don't have to worry about it. And if he captures, I can just capture back if I wanted, or I can move back and push this. So I have options now over here, and I can go back to what I was originally doing since this is taken care of. All right. So now, do I want to take this pawn, the knight now, or do I want to do something else? I can maybe move the queen up and take, and if he takes back with a rook, move my queen in, and then slowly march my pawns up and attack his king, which is an idea. My king is pretty much safe. I'm not worried about moving my pawns in front of my king because all his pieces are not even developed. He hasn't been developing pieces, which is super important in the opening. Usually, if you don't develop your pieces in the opening and you keep moving pawns, basically you don't have anything to fight with. And right now, this king doesn't have much defenders besides these 2 pieces. So I'm thinking about just taking one of them and then getting this one involved. But because I want to pin the rook, I think I should move queen to d2 first, and then take. And after the rook takes, pin the rook to the king. I like that idea more than just taking now and then moving up because he has time to move away. So I prefer to prepare this. Okay. Yeah, see if this changes anything. And it doesn't look like it does. It's just attacking the knight, and it's not doing anything with the square. And it's not, it'd be different if it was here because it would be an extra piece. So I would be attacking and attacking back. But instead she moved here, which isn't really involving with what I'm doing. So, and it's not like I can see a counterattack. So it doesn't change anything with my safety, and it doesn't really help improve her safety. So I'm going to go ahead and take. And now pin the rook to the king. Now this brings another piece to defend, but it's purely defensive. It's not doing anything to help counterattack anything, so I'm not super worried about it. Um, I have been considering moving his pawn up and pawn up again to attack. However, again, if he takes, I can't really take back because these two pieces are attacking it, so I can't really do that. But if he does move this piece, it would allow my queen to come in for a check, and I have to consider what that means. So it may be a good idea to bring my rook in to help put pressure on the king before moving his pawn up to open everything up. Is basically what I'm thinking. I don't know if it's better to my pawn up first or my rook over. Bring my pawn up, and he moves, and I bring it up again. I can start an attack and then bring my rook in when needed. Yeah, I think bringing rook in now might be a little too slow because then she has an option to do something, and I'd rather just start attacking first. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, that's pretty good. Developing and attacking a piece. I don't want to capture back with a pawn, so I'm going to move my rook over because I wanted my rook here because of the king. So if I don't move my rook now and she takes, I'd be forced to take back. But that would be a good thing for me too, because if I take out the pawn and this is pinned, I'd be winning the rook. So actually, this is actually not necessary right now. It actually would be better for me to not worry about it. Yeah, because if I move my rook over and she takes, I'd rather just take with a pawn. The nice pin, that's all good. So now I got to consider if I move something else or if I should move here anyways. Let's see. Let's say I move up. She can maybe take. If she takes with this pawn, then I can call it check. She'd have to move back somewheres. I can take it. And then if she takes back, I can move my piece in. So this looks pretty good for me if she captures this way. But that's not the only option. She can take with the bishop. If she does that, let's say I move up, she can just move the bishop back. And I don't have much. So I'm gonna because I don't have much with this attack and I don't have much with this here, I'm gonna bring this in. So that way if I bring this up, she can't take with the bishop, she has to take with the pawn. So I'm gonna go ahead and weaken my king a little bit because I feel like my attack will come first. So I think it's okay. All right. Now I gotta look over here to see what she's doing. It looked pretty safe earlier, but I don't know if I have to address this or not. Her threat is taking this pawn, and I don't see anything else after that. I don't see really the reason or point. I can move up to c4, and if she takes, my bishop can become another attacker. So even though she's not doing much here, it's giving me an opportunity to bring another attacker into the game. So I should probably take advantage of that. I should probably do that. Or I can continue here first and then move up later. So I gotta look at the order of what's more important. If I go up now, she takes and I go back and she takes and then I take, I have this open right here. If I go here first and she were to take this way, I would have check. She can move back. I can take the knight, go back here, and then in the future move up. I like this a little bit more. I think it's more direct. Yeah, I think this is more direct. So I like this a little better. And now the rook is pinned, but ooh, the rook is pinned, but the queen can take it. So it's not going to mean much. And then I can take here. I think this is fine. Yeah, the queen can take it. I can take the bishop instead of take the rook. Oh. All right. So I didn't look at all my safety stuff and I lost my queen. So I'm going to have to really pay attention now a lot more. That was pretty bad. So now 2 rooks and a queen versus 2 rooks and a bishop. I wasn't really looking too much. That's why I'm supposed to go with every single move. I didn't look at every single move. Basically, I made a move and then I made another move without really assessing it. So that's the point of really trying to assess every single move, basically. So that's pretty much the point of it. So what do I do now? I don't want to trade. That would be bad. I don't have takebacks, but let's go back a little bit. Why is it doing so fast? Yeah. Over here, I should have moved my rook over to attack the queen, making it move out the way and then taking the bishop. But over here, I had an idea, and when after she moved, I just went with my idea and didn't pay attention to it. And if you notice, most of the game I was doing that. And hopefully, this is a good example of why you should do this all the time. Because one move can obviously change a lot, and everything's pretty much changed now. Like all of it's changed. And that's like a really good example. And I'm not happy about making a blunder, but I'm happy that you got to see like why I do the process that I usually do. So now I have to decide how to continue. When you're down a piece, like and I'm down basically a queen for a bishop, basically you don't want to trade anything because let's pretend I trade right now, and then she'll have a queen and a rook versus a bishop and a rook, and that's gonna be very difficult. I prefer both of my rooks to try to combat this than having one rook. So I have to move my rook, it looks like. But if I move my rook anywhere, the queen can call check, and then my king is kind of in danger. But not entirely, because you can't checkmate someone with the queen alone. My rooks are here defending, and you will need a lot to checkmate someone when they have both of their rooks defending their king like this. So I'm not super worried about the pawn because of that reason. I'm going to go ahead and defend my rook and prevent him from capturing my rook and let him call check and move my king over. I'll go out with this and defend that. Now she can call it check, but she can't. There's no checkmate. So it's just going to be checks. And I move back. She doesn't really have anything, so she's going to have to make a different move if she wants to win. Okay, there she goes. Yeah, if she kept going back and forth, that would be stalemate, which would be fine for me in this situation. But now I got to consider what to do. Now, if I move a rook over and she takes, and I take, and she takes, and I take with my king, I have better drawing chances with my pawns and my bishop than I do with basically these two versus these two. So in this case, I think it's okay to trade. I doubt she would try to trade, but yeah, if I go here, she may call it check. I move back and then take my rook. So that will be bad for me. So I don't want to do that either. I don't want to give her that option. My bishop is a little trapped off, so I might want to make it active, but I don't know how to, because if I move back, it's blocked in by my pawn. So earlier when I went to my pawn up one, that's probably, and I didn't do it, that probably would have been better, a lot better for me. So let's see here. Yeah, I'm gonna bring my other rook in and see if I can attack the queen and somehow bring it over. All right, I'm gonna resign this one. Yeah, normally in the group games, that's never happened. Like I've been doing group games for over a year, and that's never happened. Um, on live, it did happen. But that's because in the group games, I ask lots of questions, and usually I'm asking myself the same exact question every time. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this again, and this time do the whole entire process every time. So D6. This is the perk. This is off standard. Developing, fianchetting the bishop. Yeah, this is a really weird move. I've never seen that before. Castle. I've seen this structure before, but with that structure, I normally see the bishop on this square with the queen up here, attacking this way. Let's see here. Let's see here. The king's pretty safe. She's got a pretty decent pawn structure, so do I. I mean, she has maybe that, but it's not really much to worry about. I can actually move my e pawn now, so if she takes, I take back. But that kind of closes in my bishop too. So usually, yeah, her bishop's not an e3, so this is probably better to c5. So I'm gonna do that now. Whenever I option for c5 or e5, I usually take it. Normally a good idea. In this structure, I like a3 a lot because I don't like the knight being here. I think it's too much. So, she's basically lining it up so I can attack her with my queen. Let's see here. I'm gonna move this first. Yeah, because my bishop didn't have any squares, so I just didn't develop it. I might actually develop it to the square later. And this is the normal attack too. You can actually even sacrifice your rook for the knight as white for this, because the pawn moves, and this becomes super weak because the pawn's out the way. So this becomes a very, you know, a lot of times people move the pieces out the way and actually move all these pawns up, and it's crazy the way someone can attack after sacking this pawn. But I also am not too worried about it at the same time. But it can be like crazy. I'm gonna move up and get ready to attack the king because this isn't normal. What she did for a king, it's definitely not normal. All right, now that prevents the attack, which is good for her. Now I can actually develop my knight here and maybe reroute it to attack the bishop. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead. That doesn't change anything. All right. And if I move this now, she'll just take the pawn. So I think I should move my pawn first or my rook over. Even when I pawn up one, I'm kind of blocking my bishop in, but my bishop can't go any squares anyways because of these pawns here are all attacking these squares. So my bishop is kind of blocked off. So because of that, I'm okay with this. Normally, I wouldn't like blocking my bishop off, but my bishop is already blocked off, so it doesn't really matter. And now I can like bishop this way. If I move up again, attacking, she can just go back down, and I'd be in the same problem. But this time if I move, it's not attacking the pawn, so it's not that bad. And if she attacks, I can bring my knight here. Attack knight, attack. She'll win a pawn that way, so that's not good for me. Can take this now. And if she takes, I can take back. So yeah, this is actually a lot better. I'll just take now. I didn't get to trade off my knight and open this up, but that's okay. I can actually move my rook over here, threatening this way. Now I can trade the bishop, which I've been wanting to do for a while. This bishop in the perk is very strong. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I don't know why she didn't recapture, but now that I'm up a piece, I always like to trade when I can. And here is I can take right now. I normally don't like helping my opponent, but because if I take it, they can help me develop a piece. But in this case, I'm fine with it. And now I can attack the knight, and it will force him to take back. I'm not sure, but I kind of like that as well. I also no, I can't do this because then she'll take my knight this way, and if I take back, my queen will be under attack. So I can attack this pawn, and that way, if I take the knight and she takes back, I can take the pawn. So I'm gonna go ahead and set that up. My bishop doesn't have much squares in the side anyways. So I'm gonna go ahead and the queen is defending this pawn as well. And this will be attacking this pawn, but the knight can take it. Here's might be a little better. Be attacking the knight twice and winning a pawn. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. All right, I'll get started on that. I be mindful. If she takes this way, I would have to take my rook because my queen will be discover attacked if I take out the pawn. Something I have to be mindful of. If I'm going to rook out the way now, this is a free knight for the same reason I just explained earlier. So I may have to end up just attacking the rook this way with my knight. I can also go over here and attack the queen. I'm not entirely sure what is even better here. If he hits the rook, but then if he takes, that'll be a free queen. Probably just my queen out the way, to be honest. It's probably the best thing I should do. All these lines that I see that it's possible to hit the queen. Now I can move my pieces freely. A little bit more free than earlier, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. This pawn go. Maybe I should move this pawn up one and move the knight out the way. Yeah. Give me a little pawn chain. And now I can move the knight and not worry about, yeah, this is fine. Then I'm going to rook over. I can't move it here yet. Maybe my queen over and then the rook. I'll go ahead and do that. And that's fine. I can capture this way. This diagonal is kind of blocked off, so I'm not too worried about it. And then my rook can actually come in and help by trading. Now, if I take this, I'll be threatening the rook, and we can trade, and then I can bring my knight back. Be perfectly fine. And since my knight will be on a dark square, I don't have to worry about the bishop attacking it. So this knight is basically free to stay there as long as I need it to. And now I can double attack the pawn. So I'm going to take the pawn now. And since I'm up a piece, I can just take and not worry about it, and move my queen up to threaten the queen and try to eventually get these going. All right, so yeah, I'm going to get started with this. And here, I move my queen up here to help support the pawn push. And now my queen can go here. It's defended by the knight. All right. I'll go on a diagonal that the queen can't really, well, she can call check this way, but can't really attack very well. And I can promote. I can call check this way. Can't take because of pin. But if I do this, the king can come here. If I call it check and she takes it, I can call it check. These both diagonals are blocked off. I'm not sure if that's mate. Check here. Check. If she takes. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Oh, I forgot the queen was able to do that. I didn't remember seeing it there. So that's not really good for me. So I'm going to block off the queen. I have two queens, so shouldn't be difficult to do. And then now attack this pawn. I can go here, but then she can call it check. And then if I go back, she can come back and call it check. So let's see here. If I move up here instead, she can take this and call it check. Well, in that case, I can actually start blocking with my queen. So that should be fine. Yeah, I'm going to move my queen in and take this. Now I have two queens that can come in this way, but I have a checkmate right here. So I just go ahead and do that. All right, well, that's all for now. Sorry about the other game. It was a little weird. I wasn't really paying much attention to this one. I decided to play instead of everything. It's easier to play without explaining stuff, but I'm gonna try my best next time to explain everything as I'm playing. And actually go through everything. So this is the first time I've tried to do it live. I did okay. All right. Good game. Like and subscribe. At least you can see the process on how it works a bit.